Zorro is the secret identity of Don Diego de la Vega, a fictional character created in 1919 by pulp writer Johnston McCulley. He is a Californio nobleman living in Los Angeles during the era of Mexican rule. Although some movie adaptations of Zorro's story have placed him during the earlier Spanish rule, the character has undergone changes through the years, but the typical image of him is a dashing black-clad masked outlaw who defends the commoners and indigenous peoples of the land against tyrannical officials and other villains. Not only is he too cunning and fox-like for the bumbling authorities to catch, but he also delights in publicly humiliating them. The character has been featured in numerous books, films, television series, and other media. Tiburcio Vasquez, Juan Nepomuceno Cortina and Joaquin Murrieta are cited as inspirations for Zorro. Publishing history. Zorro debuted in McCulley's 1919 story The Curse of Capistrano, serialized in 5 parts in the pulp magazine All Story Weekly. At the denouement, Zorro's true identity is revealed to all. Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford, on the honeymoon, selected the story as the inaugural picture for the new studio, United Artists, beginning the character's cinematic tradition. The story was adapted as the film The Mark of Zorro, which was a commercial success. McCulley's story was re-released by publisher Grosset and Amp Dunlap under the same title, to tie in with the film. In response to public demand fueled by the film, McCulley wrote more than 60 more Zorro stories, beginning in 1922. The Mask of Zorro was published posthumously in 1959. These stories ignore Zorro's public revelation of his identity. McCulley died in 1958, just as the Disney-produced Zorro television show was becoming popular. Fictional character biography. In The Curse of Capistrano, Don Diego Vega becomes Señor Zorro in the pueblo of Los Angeles in California to avenge the helpless, to punish cruel politicians, and to aid the oppressed. Quote, he is the title character, as he is dubbed the Curse of Capistrano. The story involves him romancing Lolita Pulido, an impoverished noblewoman. While Lolita is unimpressed with Diego, who pretends to be a passionless fop, she is attracted to the dashing Zorro. His rival is Captain Ramon. Other characters include Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez, Zorro's enemy but Diego's friend, Zorro's deaf and mute servant Bernardo, his ally Fray Felipe, his father Don Alejandro Vega, and a group of noblemen who at first hunt him but are won over to his cause. In later stories, McCulley introduces characters such as pirates and Native Americans, some of whom know Zorro's identity. In McCulley's later stories, Diego's surname became de la Vega. In fact, the writer was wildly inconsistent. The first magazine serial ended with the villain dead and Diego publicly exposed as Zorro, but in the sequel the villain was alive, and the next entry had the double identity still secret. Several Zorro productions have expanded on the character's exploits. Many of the continuations feature a younger character taking up the mantle of Zorro. Although McCulley's stories were set in Los Angeles during the era of Mexican rule, some movie adaptations of Zorro's story have placed him during the earlier Spanish era. Characteristics. In The Curse of Capistrano, Diego is described as unlike the other full-blooded youths of the times, though proud as befitting his class. He shuns action, rarely wearing his sword except for fashion, and is indifferent to romance with women. This is, of course, a sham. This portrayal, with minor variations, is followed in most Zorro media. A notable exception to this portrayal is Disney's Zorro, where Diego, despite using the original facade early in the series, instead becomes a passionate and compassionate crusader for justice and simply masquerades as the most inept swordsman in all of California. Quote, In this show, everyone knows Diego would love to do what Zorro does, but thinks he does not have the skill. The Family Channel's Zorro takes this concept further. While Diego pretends to be adept with a sword, the rest of his facade is actually exaggerating his real interests. Diego is actually well versed and interested in art, poetry, literature, and science. His facade is pretending to be interested in only these things and to have no interest in sword play or action. Zorro also has a well-equipped laboratory in his hidden cave in this version of the story. Character motifs. The character's visual motif is typically a black costume with a flowing Spanish cape, a flat-brimmed black sombrero cordobés, and a black cowl sackcloth domino mask that covers the top of the head from eye level upwards. In his first appearance, he wears a cloak instead of a cape, and a black cloth veil mask with slits for eyes covers his whole face. Other features of the costume may vary. His favored weapon is a rapier, which he often uses to leave his distinctive marked AZ cut with 3 quick strokes. He also uses a bullwhip. In his debut, he uses a pistol. The fox is never depicted as Zorro's emblem. It is used as a metaphor for the character's wiliness, such as in the lyrics, "Zorro, the fox, so cunning and free," for the Disney television show theme. His heroic pose consists of rearing on his horse Tornado, sword raised high. Inspirations. The historical figure most often associated with the Zorro character is Joaquin Murrieta, whose life was fictionalized in an 1854 dime novel by John Rowland Ridge. In the 1998 film The Mask of Zorro, Murrieta's brother Alejandro succeeds Diego as Zorro, as a hero with the secret identity who taunts his foes by signing his deeds. Zorro finds a direct literary predecessor in Sir Percival Blakeney, hero of the Scarlet Pimpernel pulp series by Baroness Emiska Orczy. The character recalls other figures, such as Robin Hood, Reynard the Fox, Salomon Pico, Manuel Rodriguez Ordóñez, and Tiburcio Vasquez. Another possible historical inspiration is William Lamport, an Irish soldier who lived in Mexico in the 17th century. His life was the subject of a fictive book by Vicente River Palacio. The Irish Zorro is a recent biography. Another is Estanislao, a Yakuza who led a revolt against the Mission San Jose in 1827. The 1890s Penny Dreadful treatment of the Spring-Heeled Jack character as a masked avenger may have inspired some aspects of Zorro's heroic persona. Spring-Heeled Jack was portrayed as a nobleman who created a flamboyant masked alter ego to fight injustice, frequently demonstrated exceptional athletic and combative skills, maintained a hidden lair and was known to carve the letter S into walls with his rapier as a calling card. Like Sir Percy in The Scarlet Pimpernel, Don Diego avoids suspicion by playing the role of an effete dandy who wears lace, writes poetry, and shuns violence. The all-black Fairbanks film costume, which with variations has remained the standard costume for the character, was likely adapted from the Arrow serial film character The Masked Rider. This character was the first Mexican black-clad masked rider on a black horse to appear on the silver screen. Fairbanks's costume in The Mark of Zorro, released the following year, resembled that of the rider with only slight differences in the mask and hat.